Hey, good morning, folks, or good day or evening to those overseas. Welcome to another episode live from Jerusalem with Rabbi Chaim Goldberg. We really appreciate him taking the time out of his busy schedule to share with us Genesis. It means so much to us. And without any further ado, let's just jump into our class. Rabbi Chaim, how are you today?
I'm fine. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Good to see you all. I'm really, everything is good. We had a lovely week with this Hanukkah that we had. I know that the rest of the world also had the Christmas on the same time, right? And tomorrow night you have also the new year that is related to the to other other issues, but never mind. We will continue on with our with what we understand and how things are supposed to be. And again, we had a very good week with the family, and I'm glad that I managed to be here today. And I prepared. We're going to dive inside to the flood in the Bible. We're going to speak at least about 14 points with this with the flood and what's happening here. So we're going to start to deal with the Noach and the Ark and everything else that happened there. Good to see you all. I hope everything is okay also in Lithuania. It was very nice to get your card, Renat. Thank you very much. Timothy, good to see you as always. And of course, Dan, I sent you saw the email, right? You saw my email and I sent you everything. Excellent. No, and this is why we have problems, because now it's officially it's okay. So we need to have problems. This is how it's working in life. That when things are good, things are having also some problems. So let's dive inside. Let's start working. Let's start learning a bit of Genesis. And I want to go back to the verses of Noach and to the verses of the flood and to explain a bit what happened there. Just a moment, let me see that I'm not losing it. We spoke, I think, a few times about, we spoke about a lot of things, and I want to go inside with the Noach now to start a bit with chapter 6. When Noach is being born in this world, chapter 5, okay? At the end of the chapter 5, we learned this, that Noach was born to this world, and when he was born, in verse number 29, and this is chapter 5, please read the verse number 29.
Turn my mic on there. And he named him Noah.
28, 29, okay?
Oh, let me move you over here. And Lamech lived 182 years, and he begot a son, and he named him Noah, saying, "This one will give us rest from our work and from the toil of our hands, from the ground, which the Lord has cursed."
So we see here the potential of Noach, and I think what we said already more than once, that Noach also with his wording, his name is comfortable. His name is, the word Noach is comfortable in English, that he was supposed to be, I will say, the Messiah. I don't have another word, okay? Because God cursed the ground, and Noach is the person who is supposed to bring us comfort and to help us that we won't have anymore the curse of this land. And if Noach would have done his mission in the right way, his generation, I will say it like that, his generation was supposed to be in the next level. But what is happening, it's something that is really, I will say, disappointing point that happened. And please, let's read Hamdan. We need to read it till verse number 8. So we will start the first 4 verses and then we'll read the last 4. Please.
And it came to pass, when man commenced to multiply upon the face of the earth, and daughters were born to them, that the sons of the nobles saw the daughters of man when they were beautifying themselves. And they took for themselves wives from whomever they chose. And the Lord said, let my spirit not quarrel forever concerning man, because he is also flesh, and his days shall be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterwards, when the sons of the nobles would come to the daughters of man, and they would bear for them. They are the mighty men who were of old, the men of renown.
Okay.
And the Lord saw that the evil of man was great in the earth, and every imagination of his heart was only evil all the time. And the Lord regretted that he had made man upon the earth, and he became grieved in his heart. And the Lord said, I will blot out man, whom I created from upon the face of the earth, from man to cattle to creeping thing to the fowl of the heavens, for I regret that I made them. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord.
And we spoke about those verses a few times, basically about the verse that is speaking or explaining that Noah found favor in the eyes of God. And we explained also the difference between the Hebrew nation and how we read this verse in the, I will say, the church, the Christian world, how they live this verse. And what we see here, that God is basically regretting that he did man. And if I will ask all of you, what was the main sin that God saw here in the human behavior? Why God regretted that he made all of them? And it says here in verse number 4 and verse number 5, what you will say, please explain to me. Good to see you also. Yes, Timothy.
That the evil was that they had bad things on their head all the time, right?
They had a lot of bad things in their heads, exactly. This is one thing, exactly. This is verse number 5. In verse number 4, what it says?
Verse 4 says, the Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of the nobles would come to the daughters of man.
So we have basically, what is this, the sin that we're speaking here? What is the problem that we're speaking here? It's related to sexual things, intermarriage, things that are not exactly those words, okay? So we say, this is what we're starting to understand. Let's go on to continue on. Another verse, that 9, 10, and 11, please. Done?
These are the generations of Noah. Noah was a righteous man. He was perfect in his generations. Noah walked with God. And Noah begot 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now the earth was corrupt before God, and the earth became full of robbery.
Now, we're speaking about robbery, where we all know what robbery is. After we saw that from one side, in verse number 4, they did sexual immorality. And in verse number 5, we see that they did a lot of evil inside themselves. They had a lot of evil in their heart and in their time. At the end of the days, when God is trying to decide why he is going to demolish, why he's going to do this flood in front of all of this, I will say, humanity that we have till then. So it says at the end of the days that, or the end of the verses, that now the earth was corrupted before God, and the earth became full of robbery. And please read the second part. And the earth became full of robbery.
And the earth became full of robbery. Other additions add, as it is said in Jonah 3:8, and of the dishonest gain which is in their hands, out of Sanhedrin 1:8.
Okay, so it says basically that the main reason, and Rashi is bringing here something from Sanhedrin, the main reason why God decided to bring the flood and to wipe off This is the point number one that I want to mention in this lesson today. The main reason why God decided to wipe off and to bring the flood and to wipe off all the humanity until those days wasn't connected to any religion, I will say, any religion action that God demanded or didn't demanded from man. It was related to something else. It was related to the morality between people. People don't understand that. People a lot of time think that the main issue is how I'm going to behave in front of God. But God is deciding, that he needs to interfere and to decide to destroy all of this world because of when God sees or understand that this humanity won't be able to continue on with the progress because they are demolishing one each other. They're doing a lot of robbery. They're doing a lot of hard things between one each other. So this is where God decides to interfere and with his nature and to demolish, to kill, to wipe off most of humanity, because he understands, God, that this humanity won't be able to overcome, to continue on. And until those days, nobody really thought or spoke or said all of these religion things that we're speaking today. It's very important to know that. So this is point number one. I will continue on that God will say to Noah, build up for yourself some sort of, in the Hebrew tradition, we say that the ark was also the house of God. I will give you just a moment, I will give you the verse. I will find the verse, I will give you the verse. In a moment, sorry, it's in Psalms. In our tradition, we have the tradition of the Midrash, of course. And in the Midrash, it says that they're taking a verse, a very important verse that we have. This verse here, it's the songs of the musical for the Shabbos day. But here in verse number 14, please look in verse number 14, we can see that, please read verse number 14, Hamdan.
Yeah,
No,
planted
read verse number 13 and then 14. 13 first and then 14.
The righteous one flourishes like the palm. As a cedar in Lebanon, he grows. Planted in the house of the Lord, in the courts of our God, they will flourish. Wow, that's beautiful.
Okay, now who is the righteousness that was flourishness like the palms? Who was the righteousness that we know in the written down scripture in Genesis? This was Noah.
Well, okay, and Abraham and
yeah, of course. But we know that Noah was in the house of the Lord. This is how our sages are saying that this was some sort of an inside place that was different than all of the world around them. And we will explain this a bit more. We'll go to this a bit more. And this is where God saw in the flood generation, I'm going back to the flood generation, that the earth was corrupted before God, and the earth became full of robbery.
Right.
And the man never saw the immorality behavior that he had between people. So God had no other choice instead of interfering with this flood and trying to wipe off all of this corrupt generation and to rebuild this new, I will say, new world with only one family that will manage to rebuild back all of this, I will say, all of this humanity that we have today. And as I said before, the categories that God used when he decided to wipe off this world is not related to any religion categories. It's related only to man and his fellow men behavior, and those were the categories that God decided to wipe off this world. Only after that, in the next generation, after Noah will start his, I will say, his new world, then the religion will come to this world also. It's something that we need to realize. And I want also to go to another, I will say it like that, the main rebellion against God in those days until Noah lived in our world, the main rebellion was the rebellion against moral behavior, not rebellion against God. The next point, now you're starting to understand what I said. Now it's more clear. The rebellion that God was so against, and he decided to interfere and to go back to interfere with the world and with all of the nature and all the laws in the nature, was the rebellion that people did against moral behavior between one with each other, not the rebellion against God.
Wow. So they just totally became immoral.
Exactly. And this is what it says here. This is the verse 11. In verse 11 is saying that everything was corrupted before God. But what was corrupted before God? That they became full of robbery. Robbery is not in front of God. Robbery is between one with his fellow man. Okay?
Right.
Only us. But this was corrupted before God. But there is also another thing that was corrupted before God. And let's go back a bit. We spoke about this in few. I said it in the beginning. You said it also that that in the beginning there was also some sort of corruption with the sexual situation. The sexual situation was also corrupted. Now, it's not. I didn't put it here because it's not written in Rashi, but it's also in the Midrash. So one of the things that our sages are saying to us along history, that the second thing that happened there also was a lot of corruption with the immoral sexual situation. And this is also one of the things that brought the flood. Now we need to understand this a bit, because the immoral sexual situation is something that this is some sort of, I will say, behavior that is putting all of our body inside to this situation. Everything that is related to the sexual situation is involving all of the body. All of the body is involved with this thing. You can do, I will say, when you, for example, when you're robbing someone else, so maybe you're using your hands, you're using your brain, you're using your legs if you want to run or something like that, but it's not all of your body. The sexual situation is something that is connected to all of the body. And when they started to put the focus only on the body side, not on the spiritual side, only on the body side, this is where basically God decided also to wipe off all of the bodies. It's related one to each other. We say it's also related a bit to the situation that we're going to read in a few minutes, that it took them 40 days. We'll speak about this also. And it's also related to the thing that is related to the water. I don't know if you know that, but in the Hebrew tradition, when a woman have her period, so the way that she's going out from this unpure situation and getting related again to her husband, and they can do also a sexual relationship between them and bring the next generation, she needs to go to the water, what we call the mikveh. She needs to be in the water, and the water also have some sort of amount of water inside. So again, we're speaking about the water. It's very interesting to understand there's a difference between water and fire. The water, and I will explain this also, and this is also related to this immoral sexual situation. So to understand the difference between the water and the fire, I want to go to another verse that we're going to read, that we're reading here. This is verse number 11 and 12. No, not here. Just a moment. It's the next. It's the next. Sorry. It's the next chapter when we're speaking about the flood itself. Before I'm going to explain this, I want to say that in our tradition, there is a very big question, moral question. Are you allowed to do abortion, or what will happen if you will take someone that is pregnant and you're killing her? Can we say that you also killed the baby that's inside the mother? And this is a moral question that it's a moral question that everybody is asking themselves. What exactly is this part? When is exactly it is called the murder and everything else? In the Hebrew tradition, we're saying that we have 40 days, 40 days, and before those 40 days, even though we know that it's this young body already have few things, it is not being alive, and only after the 40 days, this is where it is being alive. We call this something that is alive, and you are not allowed to kill it anymore. This is those 40 days. This is exactly what we find here also in the beginning of the flood, because it starts with 7 days, okay? And it came to pass after the 7 days that in the beginning it was only rain. And then let's read number 12. Please read the verse number 11 and then verse number 12.
In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, on the 17th day of the month, on this day, all the springs of the great deep were split, and the windows of heaven opened up, and the rain was upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights.
Okay, so we're speaking about if we want now to rebuild, and this is another point, very important point that I want to mention in this lesson today. If we want now to give birth to the new world, so we need to take like the womb of the mother and to put the seeds of this new world that will come, Noah, his sons, and also the few animals. And for the first 40 days before we will continue on, it's like a womb that God is organizing here for the next generation. And this is why it's also speaking about 40 days. And this is also a bit of a replacing or giving, I will say, the answer why we're speaking about 40 days, because one of the problems that they did here before, that they did also immoral sexual situation. And the immoral sexual situation is saying that we need now to fix back this sexual situation. And now we're going to fix this back. We're going to bring to alive from this womb, the ark is like the womb, the new family that will rebuild the new generations or the new world to become. So we're speaking about, this is one of the things that we said here, and we need also to understand. So again, so I'm going back, I'm just summarizing a bit what I said. We saw that the main rebellion against God was immoral behavior. We saw also that the ark was like the house of God. So that also we understand that God is interfering only when there is some sort of a crisis. And we saw very surprisingly that the crisis is not related how men behaved against God, but more how men behave between one and each other. And we saw that there was also an immoral sexual situation or immoral sexual behavior that God is trying to rebuild or to replace, to reconnect. We're starting to understand what's happening. And it's like when a woman wants to be pure to her husband, she's going inside to the water. And the same thing here, we see that this world need to have a pure situation. Therefore, the world is going to under the water. And it's especially under the water and not under the the fire. And why are we saying that? I want to explain this a bit. Just a moment. I'm going back to chapter number 6. I'm sorry, I'm jumping here from 1 to 1.
That's okay, Rabbi. You do what you have to do. We appreciate you sharing.
Okay. In verse number 7, I need to show Rashi also. Okay, verse number 7 here, we read it before, a few minutes ago we read it. You read it very nicely. Where God is saying that he wants to, please read verse number 7 again.
And the Lord said, I will blot out man, whom I created from upon the face of the earth, from man to cattle to creeping thing, to the fowl of the heavens, for I regret that I made them.
And Rashi is saying here something very interesting when he is explaining the word emche. The word emche. Emche, okay, it says in here in English,
I will blot out.
Yes, I will blot out. I will blot out. Okay, so please read Rashi only for the part of the I will blot out.
And the Lord said, I will blot out man. He is dust, and I will bring water upon him, and I will blot him out. Therefore, the expression is used from Tan Buber Noah 4.
Okay, so we have, it's one of the midrashim, it's one of the traditions that we have in the oral thing. But we need to understand, there's a difference between fire and water. When something is getting connected with the fire, it is burning like the fire, and everything is wrapped up. We have the ash at the end. Nothing is staying here. God here is not going to wipe off all humanity. We have Noah in the ark that is going to stay. We have also all the animals in the ark that are going to stay. The water, not like the fire. The fire is more the din, it's more the punishment, a very hard punishment. Water is something that is giving us life in this world. We all know that 70% of the human body is water. We all know that without water, we can't live. We all know that without water, we can't grow up anything in the field. And those are things that we need also to eat. So the water is something that is blessing to this world. Unless you're giving it too much over time. If you give it over time, so it's wiping. But we're speaking here about something that God is saying, I'm not going to demolish, to kill, to take like the, to take the fire and to burn all this world. I'm going to only to do this in the blood out. I'm going only to do this in some sort of a sense. I'm going to punish this world. I'm going to wipe off this world. But still, I'm going to also to live part of this world, and this is why I'm using the water. So after we see that this world came to a point of the history that it was a disappointing point, it didn't manage. Noah, that was supposed to be the Messiah, didn't manage to bring his nation, his generation to become to the next world, to bring him to the next world to become Noah. But still, Noah is the seed that God is going to put inside the womb of house of God to rebuild the next world. And this is why he's using only the water. Okay? And we see this also, again, let me jump. Now, we are here in verse number 7 of just a moment, let me close this up.
So busy.
Okay. No. I'm not answering. I want to jump now to chapter number 7 again, and to see that what I said about the water, how much the water can have, I will say, those two situations. Because when we're looking on verse number 12 here, verse number 12, just a moment. You read before, that was ויהי הגשם על הארץ 40 יום ו40 לילה. And please read verse number 4.
Yeah, the rain was upon the earth for 40 days and 40 nights.
Please read Rashi for this part also.
And the rain was upon the earth. And further, in verse 17, Scripture says, now the flood was upon the earth. But when he brought them, the rains, down, he brought them down with mercy, so that if they would repent, they would be rains of blessing. When they did not repent, they became a flood. That is Zohar
The
Hadesh.
water is something that could have the two sides. God is still giving them the opportunity to do redemption and to go back. I want to remind also all of us that the water have this, I will say, possibility of bringing men to become pure, and it says already in very clear in Yechezkel. So please let's read it down in Yechezkel also, in chapter 36, when it's describing where the Hebrew nation will return back to their homeland that we have today. One of the things that it says here in verse number 25, it's very clear and very simple, but it says here that, let's please read verse number 24 and then verse number 25.
For I will take you from among the nations and gather you from all the countries, and I will bring you to your land, and I will sprinkle clean water upon you, and you
clean water,
water, and you will be clean. From all your impurities and from all your abominations will I cleanse you.
So we see that the water have the possibility to wipe off the world, for the world from one side, or to save Noah from the other side, to wipe off all the Egyptians when we're speaking about the story in Exodus, or to save Moses that is in the ark, in his ark. And the water have also the possibility when God is sprinkling, clean water upon us, that to bring us or to put us in the most purity thing, that as we opposing to what we said in Genesis. Please read verse number 26. What will happen to us when God is sprinkling to us those good water?
And I will give you a new heart, and a new spirit will I put within you, and I will take away the heart of stone out of your flesh, and I will give you a heart of flesh.
And Timothy, before that, what you said to me, the first thing that you said, they had a stone heart. They had inside the heart a lot of bad things. Suddenly we can see that the water have also the possibility to change your bad heart from a stone heart to a flesh heart. And this is what God gave them in the beginning as an opportunity. This is why he used the water. At the end of the days, they didn't use this, This generation was wiped off with the flood. But those water that God used, he didn't use the fire, he used the water, because the water also have the possibility to bring up also some sort of a new redemption to the world with this ark that is like a womb, that after that all of this world will come back to this to redemption, to become new. And I want to remind us also that the 40 days is also the days that God is giving us the Bible, the Torah, when Moses is going up to Sinai mountain. So he's staying there for 40 days. And after 40 days, he's coming back with the 10 Commandments. So those 40 days is getting, again, it's the same understanding. The 40 days of every creature in his mother womb, and the 40 days also the days that God gave to this generation in the flood, and it's also the 40 days that God is giving the Bible or the Torah. So we're saying basically that this generation had the possibility to take the Torah for themselves, and they just lost it. They decided to be very like a stone heart, what we said before. And this is where God is saying to them, I'm going back to verse number 6, to chapter number 6, where God is saying, I'm sorry, I'm jumping in today from chapter number 5.
That's okay. You're easy to follow today.
I'm trying to explain this very easily. In chapter number 6, it says in verse 13, where God is saying to Noah, with all of the respect. Okay, read verse number 12 and verse number 13.
And God saw the earth, and behold, it had become corrupted, for all the flesh had corrupted its way on the earth. And God said to Noah, the end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth has become full of robbery because of them. And behold, I am destroying them from the earth.
Okay, this is where we're standing now. And by the way, please, you can read the Rashi also again, except for don't read the idolatry. You see, it's in Brooklyn. Don't read it except for that. Wherever
you find a pestilence comes upon the world and kills both good and bad alike, from Genesis Rabbah 26:5. Note that parenthetic words do not appear in Genesis Rabbah. Leviticus Rabbah.
Okay, this is why we didn't read them. Okay, this is why we didn't read them. So what we're saying here is, we explained this already once, that the nature doesn't